This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
All right, hot stove, pretty hot right now in Phoenix, Arizona. Not a ton of movement, but a lot of talks. Let's go through the offseason headlines. Soraka will pitch for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks showing interest in free agent Alex Bregman. How do free agent signings affect Ketel Marte trade talks? And no, not man tries to get baby Rhino off the road. I think that's an advertisement. But D-backs Merrill Kelly on the verge of a reunion. So let's talk to the man responsible for those headlines. So here to spread some holiday cheer for all Diamondback fans to hear, longtime Diamondback beat writer Nick Piecoro joins us here on the Extra Point. And Nick, is your phone currently buzzing multiple times? How are you winding down this holiday season and keeping track of what's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot happening. I mean, I felt like we had enough to try to figure out when Ketel Marte's name was the lone big story out there, or big rumor out there on the hot stove. But then they added Alex Bregman interest this week and kind of caught everybody by surprise. So it makes for an interesting offseason. I can't say we're not fascinated to see which way it goes.
Multiple choice question here. We'll start with the last answer, none of the above. So I think you know where I'm going here. Who will play second base for the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2026? A would be Ketel Marte. B would be Alex Bregman. C would be you from your slick fielding days at, I believe it was Ironwood High School in the West Valley, or none of the above. What's your answer?
Well, I never even made the team in high school, so it can't be me. I did go to Ironwood though, good memory. I guess I would say Ketel, but I mean, it feels to me, I don't. It's a really hard one. I feel like they are inclined to trade Marte. I feel like they see an opportunity to get a lot of value back. And kind of support the areas that are a little lacking right now in the organization, namely starting pitching and maybe bullpen as well. But like, I don't know. I still kind of feel like there's if you had to put odds on it, like I still don't know that I'm betting money that he actually does get traded. I think they'd like it to happen. I think if the right deal came along, it would happen. But it's hard to predict, such a massive trade taking place, especially when it's like a lot of other trades tend to happen because a guy is reaching free agency or there's some sort of deadline approaching to get value. In this case, Ketel has 6 years to go. I guess there is the 10-5 rights where he would have no trade protection going forward that would kick in early April. So, I mean, that is sort of a deadline, but like if the worst case scenario is, you have Ketel Marte for the next 6 years, that doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like a major impetus to get a deal done. I'm super curious to see where it goes. I'm curious to see if teams are willing to pay the price, if they're, spooked at all by some of the, clubhouse issues that he's had in the past, or don't know that they want to be, locked into that contract. I don't know. I mean, he's clearly been the best second baseman in baseball over the last few years. He mashes, he's a switch hitter. He has, not only crazy athleticism and bat speed and power, he has an approach at the plate. He doesn't strike out much. He doesn't chase pitches. He's kind of everything you could ask for from an offensive perspective. And I don't think he's signed to a bad contract. So there's a lot to like there. And I could see a team stepping up and paying a big price. But I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. And it kind of makes me wonder if teams are wary of something.
If he were to walk back into the Diamondback clubhouse first day of spring training, would it be awkward?
I mean, you'd have to answer a lot of questions from us, right? We would be the first people there to greet him, seeing what he thinks about everything. But I mean, I would think that at this point, age 31, 32, having had as many years in the league as he's had, that he understands that this is a business and that, the Diamondbacks aren't the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers. And, when they have a, opportunity to, get younger and cheaper and more flexible. And, they have payroll considerations. I think he would understand that that's just part of the deal of playing in a market like this. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I can't get inside Catel's head. I think it's possible he might be offended. He might be upset. I could see him seeing it as, I've signed nothing but team friendly contracts with you guys. I've been committed to you guys forever. I'm offended that you would even consider trading me. But I would guess at the end of the day, everybody would just move on.
And okay, so we believe Merrill Kelly is that should hit any day, and according to your reporting, it seems like it's trending in that direction. It seems like that was where some of the friction was. If you bring back Merrill Kelly, do you think you could bring back Ketel Marte and smooth things over? I guess the question is, how difficult is that job for Torey Lovullo?
I don't think that there's any issue. I don't think that like there's any individual players that have major beef with Ketel. I think it was a lot of guys in the room collectively that were frustrated that he wasn't playing more often, and particularly around the All-Star break. I don't think guys like actively dislike Ketel Marte. I just think that he's amazing. He's a really good player, and the more that he plays, the more that he helps them win. And I think that they get frustrated, and certainly got frustrated around the All-Star break when he wasn't out there for them. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's always a bit of a challenge managing Cattell for Torrey. I think it's a little bit of like, how hard do you push him without pushing too hard? I think that's probably the case with a lot of players of his age and even younger. It's guys aren't kind of built the way that they used to be necessarily. So I mean, I think it's always going to be a challenge going forward for Torrey. I'm not I guess this does add a little bit of a wrinkle to it. But look, I mean, from Torrey's perspective, he's not the one in there making the trade overtures, right? I mean, he's managing the team, so I think that does give him a little bit of cover there from Catel's perspective.
No, certainly, and I think as far as Marte goes, I root for interesting. I think he's very interesting. I think he's been a pretty nice guy when I've been around him. I'm not around him obviously as much as you are, but I do the wild talent, and I'm just like, man, I just want him to be in the MVP consideration every year. I guess I want him to hit a home run every at bat. It's probably my fault for having too high of expectations, isn't it?
He's amazing. I really it's just been a matter of, I guess there was the one year, trying to remember, was that 2022? It was a little bit of a down year. But otherwise it's just been a question of if he's healthy. And when he's been healthy, he's been amazing. And he seems to have gotten better and better over the last couple of years. It seemed like that postseason run in 2023 just really, I don't know. It maybe like it taught him something about himself, or it just kind of reshaped the way that he looks at himself and looks at where he fits among the game's best players, and kind of gave him an understanding of what he needs to do to be that great, and kind of drives him, I think, to be that great. Won the MVP of the NLCS. I think that really meant a lot to him, and I think it motivates him.
So you're starting to talk me into Marte coming back, and then you bring Bregman in and you throw him at third base, I guess. And then what would you do? Put Blaze in left field? How are we putting the dominoes together 1 through 9 here in your mind as you put things down on a piece of paper with a pencil?
I don't know. It's hard to imagine Bregman and Ketel on the same team, but I guess that just comes down to what Ken Kendrick thinks about it, and whether he is willing to make it work from a financial perspective. I'm guessing he won't really be able to make it work, from a pure business perspective. I suspect that would be stretching things a little bit too much, a little bit too far beyond the break-even point. But in that scenario, I guess I would say Blaze becomes a center field option. We saw him out there a little bit late in the year, and he played pretty well. And Jordan Lawler, don't forget about him. He could be an option as well. He was playing some center field in the Dominican during winter ball. So those are two really good athletes that could move all around the field. But I mean, I feel like if Ketel goes, that it's that it or sorry, if Bregman comes, it's more likely probably that Ketel goes.
Well, and as far as payroll goes, I've heard floated around from somebody who would know a thing or two about it. About half of what the Dodgers payroll would look like going into 2026. Where do you expect the Diamondbacks payroll to land from what you've been able to what rocks you've been able to unturn in your conversations? And I guess the other question is, I mean, how do they compete with the Dodgers?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I'm guessing the payroll is going to be, but I also think it's just sort of a waste of time. It kind of felt like they were going to be trending in a certain direction, a month ago when I was out in Las Vegas for the GM meetings. And then they've gone out and spent $30 million or so on Soroka, bringing back James McCann and re-signing Merrill Kelly, and need they still need bullpen help. And we still have these Alex Bregman rumors that look back 12 months ago. No one saw Corbin Burns coming. No one expected them to be where they were payroll wise. It's just Ken decided that that's what they were going to do. So, I mean, look, it doesn't really matter what we sit here and talk about, what the payroll looks like. It's going to come down at the end of the day, whether Ken Kendrick wants to spend a little bit more or not. And then back to, they don't compete with the Dodgers from that perspective financially. I mean, they just don't. I mean, the reality is you sit here and you look at it, and if they're going to try to make the postseason, they're competing probably more with the Giants and the Padres and the Reds and the Cubs and, all those other clubs that are going to be competing for wild cards across the National League. Look, it's not that you want to sit back and just concede the division. And the Giants made a push, several years ago, and won the same number of games as the Dodgers that year. It can be done. You just kind of need everything to fall in place, and you need everything to kind of go wrong for the Dodgers, at least as it's currently constructed.
So heading into 2026, do we just kind of sit back and hopefully they can hang in that wild card race and get an ace in a closer back? How would you sort of, and without knowing the starting nine for opening day, how would you handicap the strategy for getting the next playoff winner on the field in downtown Phoenix? And I asked that question because I know that that's all that Mike Hayes and Torey Lovello and Ken Kendrick care about.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, and I do think it doesn't shape up great for them on paper heading into this year with the guys you're talking about, Corbin Burns and Justin Martinez and AJ Puck down to open the year. But let's remember that in 2023 they won 84 games and got into the playoffs. Last year they were sellers at the deadline and left for dead, and wound up playing meaningful baseball until the final week of the season. The last wild card spot, that extra wild card spot that they added a few years back, does wonders to teams' chances. If the Diamondbacks can just sort of hang in there until they get Corbin Burns back, or until they get to the deadline and feel like they're within striking distance and they can make an addition or two to make their team a little bit better, I would think that would absolutely give them a chance to reach the postseason. And again, they subtracted what, two. I mean, how many veterans did they take off of their team at the deadline this year? Two big bats and a big starting pitcher, among others. There's and they still hung in there. It's just a matter of kind of catching fire at the right time and having other things break your way. But yeah, I would say if they're in the mix, they get those guys back, and they can, let's say they need a couple of relievers on July 30th, and they go out and get those guys. I think that would be kind of a successful season, as if they're buying at the deadline this year.
All right, so Corbin Burns, Jordan Montgomery, Mad Bum. Should we expect a surprise? Are you expecting one headed into the I guess the rest of the offseason here?
Ah, I mean, if they found a way to trade Ketel for a bunch of young, cheap, talented players, and then kind of replace Ketel from a position player standpoint by going and get Bregman, um, that would be a pretty good move. That'd be a pretty nice sequence of events to kind of, you'd be spending a little bit more probably, right? I mean, Bregman isn't going to sign for the 6 and 102 or whatever it is that Ketel's got left. Bregman's going to probably cost either a whole lot more in AAV or a whole lot more in total dollars, or probably both. But if you think about that money you're spending toward, r- revamping your farm system in a sense, if you're getting 3, 4 players back for Ketel, and you're replacing Ketel with a good hitter, maybe not quite as explosive or impactful of a player, but probably a better defender, and a guy that comes with a really good reputation in the clubhouse, from a leadership perspective. I mean, people in Boston were raving about the impact that he made there in just 1 year. That'd be a pretty nice offseason for these guys if they could make that happen.
Do we worry though that if this deal doesn't happen, that the Bregman thing will just kind of peter out because he's going to want to find a place to go? Or do you think, the whole thing with being able to have spring training in your own home and be in your own home the entire year is a real thing and a real reason why people want to make this a destination spot?
Um, I don't know. I don't. It's hard to predict how the timing of all that stuff would have to go down. I think last year, after they signed Corbin Burns right after Christmas, I forget, it was right around the holidays. If you just said like, are they going to trade a starting pitcher? I'd have said 100%. They didn't, and they wound up keeping all 7 of those starters that they went into the year with. It's hard to predict that any of these moves are going to happen, let alone the order of them. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
What about, okay, so say Bregman did go to second. Would in theory then Blaze go to third, Lawler with his work potentially end up
I think
in center?
if Bregman, why wouldn't Bregman just go to third? Why would Bregman go to second in your
Okay.
mind?
I just, because he played second for the Astros in 2021, so that's how I see
I
him.
just
But
no,
yeah,
I think he's probably more comfortable and more experienced as a third baseman. It's not like the Diamondbacks have anyone,
yeah.
truly established at that position. I think if you sign Bregman, you're probably putting him at third.
And I think based on the way Blaze played down the stretch, but you think Blaze is like,
Blaze could handle second,
you think,
and so
okay.
so could Lawler. Yeah, I think they would defer to Bregman in that scenario. Yeah, is that where you were going with that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
would
yeah. I'm just
if
trying to put
Ketel is
together the
gone?
pieces here. Yeah, as I draft my
Yeah,
fantasy baseball team, where
I
I
think, yeah,
draft.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
I think that if Ketel goes and Bregman comes, then you'd have those 2 guys, Lawler and Blaze, kind of bouncing between second and center. Like maybe one of them plays center field against lefties, and either McCarthy or Thomas plays against righties. Um, and then, I think that's kind of the way that little rotation would go with those guys.
And what about first? Right now, would it be like a Pavin Tawa combo, unless Paul
Could be.
Goldschmidt, of course, comes back or
Yeah,
somebody comes
could.
back in the Ketel deal?
Yeah, Tyler Locklear, don't forget about
Yep,
him
yep, yep.
once he's healthy. Um, I think those are probably the most likely guys, and then DH similar, maybe the same names. And those are areas that will, Adrian Del Castillo could factor in, I think, at DH. I think those are other spots that you look at as the year develops. You give the young guys an opportunity, see if anybody grabs it, and if not, like maybe it's an area that you look to find a replacement at the deadline, an upgrade.
All right. Have you got all your Christmas shopping done?
Pretty much, just about. How about you?
No. I'm just gonna be glued to my phone while I'm wandering around Target, waiting for your next tweet to see what happens. Do you expect anything to happen over the holiday season, or the way that this is kind of trending? Do we go all the way till spring training? You have any feel?
No, not really. I mean, I don't think it's going to go all the way to spring training. I mean, one thing these guys, the D-backs people, have talked about is at some point, if they don't find the offer that they're looking for with Ketel, they just shut it down and they say, okay, we've got to make decisions here. We got to move forward, and we're going to move forward with him. And they're going to kind of go the rest of the offseason, under the impression they're keeping him. I guess that doesn't preclude anybody from making some charge on February 5th with an offer they weren't willing to do on, December 18th. But I do think more than likely the Diamondbacks are going to have to figure out some of these other holes. I guess most pressingly in the back of the bullpen and maybe a little bit more starting pitching depth. Without factoring a Ketel trade into it. So that they can't sit there and let all the other free agent possibilities come off the board while they're waiting for, whether it's Boston or, Cincinnati or whoever to make that big offer that they're waiting for on Ketel.
All right, last one for you. How merry of a Christmas do you think this is in the Merrill Kelly household, being able to come back to Arizona?
Oh yeah, I think it's a really good outcome. I think I'm happy for him because I think he took a pretty team friendly deal the last time. Pitched far better than he was getting paid there for a while. And he kind of gets the best of both worlds because he got to go out there, see what his value was on the market, and the Diamondbacks are pretty much paying him market value, it seems like, for it. There was a report from Ken Rosenthal that Merrill signed with the Diamondbacks for 2 and 40, and there was a report that he turned down 3 and 50-ish or 50 something from another team. And this deal that he has from the Diamondbacks includes an option for a third year if he hits a certain number of innings, in the second year. So it's still possible that he's going to outperform, what he was offered or what he turned down from that other team if he stays here and stays healthy and pitches well. So I think it's a good outcome. He gets market value. He plays at home. He finishes his career presumably in the place where this is home for him. It's a great situation, I think.
Well, we hope you have a very happy holiday season as well. May all your scoops be first. And, we look forward to seeing you back at the ballpark in 2026.
Same to you, Mark. Appreciate it.